Okay, so if you haven't already, I just put the link into the chat box for the Google document that we work on. Put it in there a couple times. Give me just a second and we'll get going. Oh, no problem. You were actually early. I'm glad you're back. All right. So let's go ahead and get going. Let me share my screen real quick. All right. So I was going to move on to poetry this week. However, this past week we had, oops, I just realized I needed to delete something there. I realized this past week that our poet who just won the Nobel Literature Prize, Bob Dylan, is also a musician. So to bridge our world between reading and thinking about song lyrics to getting into poetry, we are going to use one of Bob Dylan's songs today because he is actually the first musician who's ever won the Nobel Literature Prize for his poetry in his songs. He's a songwriter as well as a singer. So I thought, what a perfect segue between music lyrics and poetry. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And we're going to continue the same process as we've been doing with close reading. It's a time-consuming thing to kind of do it over and over and over, but the repetition of practice of really learning how to see detail through specific lenses, look for patterns, and start understanding a deeper meaning takes a lot of time. So I appreciate all the hard work all of you have been putting into it. Today we're going to do it a little bit differently. Previously, we've listened to the song and then looked at the lyrics. Today we're actually going to listen to the song and look at the lyrics at the same time. Partly because the recording you're going to listen to is a pretty old recording. And so sometimes it's a little bit easier to understand everything he's saying by also reading the lyrics at the same time. But before we get into that, let's just do a quick prediction. Oops, hold on a second. Someone's chatting. Oh, yeah, I'm sure that a lot of you will know this song. This is a pretty famous song. Bob Dylan is a very famous musician and singer and songwriter. So before we get into listening to the song and reading the lyrics, let's just do a quick prediction. Looking at the title, Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan, what do you think the song is about? I have 5 different boxes up here. Go ahead and jump into a box if you have an idea of what the song might be about. Don't look at the lyrics yet. Just think about the title, Blowing in the Wind. So if you're just jumping into the session, check out the chat box. You'll find the link to the Google document in there that you can jump onto. Right now, we are just looking at the title of the song, Blowing in the Wind, and making predictions of what the song could be about. So someone has leaves blowing in the wind. Awesome. Thanks, Alexis. That was a good one. Especially right now. I mean, that just makes sense because there are leaves blowing everywhere. What else could blowing in the wind mean, do you think? Remember, there's no right or wrong to predictions. It's just our original ideas. Oh, Giovanni's saying time passing by. Let's put that in there. Good. Any other last ideas, predictions of the song? All right, so let's move on. Feel free on your own document to scroll down as you listen to the song. Let me get it playing. When you're listening to the song and reading the lyrics, just like the last couple weeks,
ever since I took this
make
case,
sure that make sure that you're writing down any details that you think might be important. Actually, I'm going to pause this for just a second because I got ahead of myself. We are looking at it through the lens of a relationship again. So think about that concept of relationship as you're looking for details. All right.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must the white dove see before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they fall out of the band? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years and some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times must a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can really see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear a people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is a blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
All right. So take a few more minutes and just scroll through the lyrics again and try to find details in the lyrics, if you haven't done it yet, that give a representation of relationship. So take about 2 more minutes to do that. All right, so I have, if you scroll down right underneath the lyrics, I have some boxes underneath a question that says, what are some different relationship details that you heard and saw in the lyrics? So look at your notes and let's put down some examples of the relationship details that you found in the lyrics. You can copy and paste if you want to, or you can also put them in your own words to explain the relationships. Nice. Paige has down that she thinks that the answer and the wind could be a relationship. That makes sense. So Riley, in the chat box, you wrote a difficult life. So that's a good theory. What are some examples specifically from the lyrics that you think make you feel that way? Can you go and copy and paste one of those examples? What are some other ideas? We've got Paige and Riley both coming up with some thoughts. What were some other relationships you saw? That's okay, Riley. It is kind of, it kind of lags a bit. We just do our best. So Giovanni has, yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? Nice, that's a good one. People and the wind. That's an interesting one. I really like that idea. Is there a specific detail from the text that you could put in there too that might help explain that even more? Oh, nice, Riley. I'm gonna go grab that one and paste it into the boxes. It's up at the top where it says, how many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? I think that's the one that you were specifically talking about. So Riley also made comment that maybe it meant his father treated him like a child. So he wanted to prove to him he can be a man. So that was thank you, Paige. That was what Riley typed in. That was a good one. Nice. Good. So those are some good relationship details. Any other ones that people want to put in here before we move to the next question? So Julia, it looks like you're in the chat. I see that in the Google chat box, it has your name. It says that you joined the group chat. So hopefully that means you're on there now. How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? That's a good one too. All right, let's move to the next question. What are some patterns that are found in details of the lyrics? So you could put specific words or phrases that repeat. That's one type of pattern. But remember, the other type of pattern could be different spots that might say different things or use different words, but they could also mean something similar. So another pattern could be similar meanings between different parts of the song, even if they use different words to explain it. Hopefully that makes sense. So check out the details of the relationships. You can go back up into the lyrics, and let's put down some patterns that you see. So Paige has that she thinks maybe all the questions in the song could represent the same thought. Interesting. Or the same question. So maybe that first one should be maybe all of the relationships in the songs. Can we change this word to relationships and keep the second question that you put in there? And I asked to replace the word relationships in the thought of, if we look up here, looking at some of the relationships, we have people in the wind. We also have how many deaths will it take? Too many people have died. So all of these little snapshots of the lyric are kind of like little relationships. The dove and the sea, right? That was my reasoning for maybe changing that word. Hopefully that makes sense. But however, I think that your second one where you had questions here wasn't the idea, that the word questions fit pretty well. I don't know that that one had to be changed. Yeah. So maybe all the relationships in the song could represent the same thought or the same questions. Or relationships. I think all of those words work really well. What are some other patterns? I have one that I'm dying to put in there, but I want to see if somebody else puts it in before me. Page, yeah, that pretty much the whole song is written as a question, right? He did keep saying yes. And that yes, I think, is important because it's like an affirmation that all of these questions are meaningful. All right, should I put my pattern in there? Okay, I notice that every chunk of the song, so looking at these different verses of the song, there's always two sentences. The first sentence usually states something. Second sentence asks a question that relates to the first sentence. So go back here and look at the detail. So if we look at this, how many times does a man look up before he can see the sky? So maybe the first one doesn't just state something, it could be a question as well. But the two sentences work together, right? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? So there's always two sentences and they're connected together with a question. So Jacob is starting to jump forward a little bit. So let's look down at the next one, because I think that we're on a natural progression to it. Jacob was saying he thinks he's accepting something that has happened to him. I think that that's probably a good idea, for sure, looking at the different details. So let's see if we can push it a little bit deeper. We're gonna try to fill out these three sentences here together. And if it works best for you to type in the chat box, that's great. If you prefer to use your voice, you're welcome to unmute yourself and tell me as well. So the first sentence, we're gonna fill in these blanks. The reason why the relationship of blank and blank is important is because blank. So we have to figure out what the relationship is, right? So if we look back up here at the patterns and at the different examples of relationship, take a second to read back through those and see if we can come up with two words or phrases that represent the relationship in this song. These last three sentences that we're going to fill out are pretty tough, so take some time to really look deep at that detail.
I was gone because I was a bit busy, and now I'm completely confused on what's going on.
So Jonah, maybe go up, even though you missed listening to the song, you can go up into the lyrics, scroll up into the
I don't have the link. I really need to get that link.
Oh, here,
I should have it like copied to something, but I keep forgetting.
Here, let me repaste it for you.
Thank you, Jacob.
Oh, did Jacob get it for you? Oh, he's faster than me. Thanks, Jacob.
Now I gotta find the Zoom thing and mute myself.
So Jonah, take a few minutes to just look through the lyrics. That will hopefully help you get caught up. So I want to go back to Jacob's comment in the chat box of something about he's accepting something that happened to him. How could we use the word accepting as one of the parts of the relationship? If we used the concept of accepting as one of the parts of the relationship, what would be the other part, do you think? So acceptance, let's put this in here. So it could be that it's happening to the singer, but can we even make that broader? Is this very specific to just the singer, or could this be more universal to everybody? The terrible state that the world is in. And Riley thinks his father. So Riley, I want you to look back into the detail and see if you can find anywhere in the lyrics where it specifically talks about the father. And Paige, I want you to go back into the detail or into the lyrics and see if you can find some specific detail that helps explain the state that the world is in. And everybody can do this, not just Paige and Riley. Let's see if one of those two might fit the bill. I think they're both good ideas, but again, it's always important to go back to the lyrics and really pull from what we see in there. That's okay, Riley, just do your best. So is anybody finding detail that helps support either of those ideas, either that it's a relationship between his father or a terrible state the world is in? Is there one of those that's jumping out looking at the lyrics? Hey, Raiden, I just got your message. No problem. I'm glad you joined us. So they don't stick to a specific topic, but there's something about that comment that you just made, Paige, that actually works really well with the concept of the world, right? The world isn't just one thing, it's lots of things. And if you look back at that detail, yeah, so I think that the world is a good one. And let's look back up. Terrible state, that was the other part. Are the different details in the lyrics also kind of describing some different terrible states? So not just terrible, maybe terrible doesn't cover all of it, but maybe things that things that are coming back to him from his past. That could be. Maybe the word terrible isn't correct. What about the word hardships? So if we think about the idea of hardships instead of excuse me, instead of terrible, I wonder if that works. Helen says hiding from his pride. Or behind it. I like that idea. So let's go back down to that sentence. The reason why the relationship of blank and acceptance is important is because blank. I think that there's lots of good parts and pieces in here. I think that the concept of the world that Paige brought up, or hardships of the world. So let's see if we can put that in here and see how that reads. The reason why the relationship of the hardships, in the world and acceptance is important because, and Helen said something interesting. Helen said something about hiding his pride or behind his pride. I wonder if we can use that idea as part of the because. So the relationship, so the reason why the relationship of the hardships in the world and acceptance is important is because Riley says he hasn't accepted the world. That could go hand in hand with that idea of pride. So how can we type that? How can we write that so it makes sense? I like those ideas. I think that those are good ones. Prideful to accept the world's imperfection. Do you think he was prideful, or do you think that maybe he was, well, maybe I'll stop there. Do you think he was prideful? Let's look back at the lyrics again. Maybe he didn't want to face reality. Yeah, so it's almost like he was hiding behind his pride, right? Kind of what Helen was saying. I don't know that he was prideful. I think he was kind of hiding from it, or not wanting to face reality is another way to think about it. Ooh, Jonah, that's a good idea. Or he can't agree how it works. So let's read this again. The reason why the relationship of the hardships in the world and acceptance is important is because he was fearful of the world. Or maybe fearful of the reality of the world. Somebody used reality a little bit ago. That might have been you too, Paige. How about that? It kind of still sticks with that same idea that Helen was saying too. It's just using some different words. Is important because he was fearful of the reality of the world. Okay, let's read that and see if it makes sense. The reason why the relationship of the hardships in the world and acceptance is important is because he was fearful of the reality of the world. That sounds pretty good, thinking about that detail. Let's try the, yeah, well, it is a little bit. We could make it even better, but it's more of the thought process that is important right now. Nicole says, I think the author's trying to learn that you have to go through a lot of things to do something or be someone. I know this because in the lyrics it says, how many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Nice. That actually, Nicole, that goes down to this last one. Let's skip down to this last question because of what Nicole just brought up. I think the author is trying to teach me blank because blank. So how can we use Nicole's idea here and insert it into this last sentence? I think we could take this last quote. Oopsie. Let's take this last quote and stick it in after the because and figure out what to do before that. Oh, Jonah uses the word milestones. That's a good word. So I think the author's trying to teach me. So we're talking about hardships, talking about milestones, talking about in that first sentence, acceptance of the reality of the world. So if you think about all of those details together, what word could we use to put in here before the because he says? What could the author be trying to teach us? Life is hard. Let's put that in there. I think the author's trying to teach me that life is hard. Oopsie. Because he says, how many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? That works really well. This is a great example of how sometimes pulling a specific detail from the lyrics or from the text can actually really help you describe what you're feeling about the song or the story. Let's see, let's go back up to that middle one. My thinking about the meaning of the song has changed from blank to blank because the author wrote. So let's go back up really quick to our predictions. Uh-oh, our predictions disappeared. Oh no, there they are. Somehow they got copied and pasted in a weird way. That's the downfall of us all working on the same Google document. Okay. So our prediction was leaves blowing in the wind and time passing by. So we could use one of those. Which one should we use? Leaves blowing in the wind or times passing by? Those were one of our first original thoughts of what the song was about. The passing by, okay, looks like there's multiple people saying that one. So my thinking about the meaning of the song has changed from time passing by to what do we think the meaning is now? We kind of did it already in that one below it. Teaching about hardships of life, good. My thinking about the meaning of the song has changed from time passing by to hardships of life because the author wrote, what are we going to put here to back it up? This could be a specific quote, a detail from it, or it can be a paraphrased thought, especially thinking about those relationships. So my thinking about the meaning of the song has changed from time passing by to hardships of life because the author wrote a lot of different questions do you think that the author wanted us to maybe try to answer those questions? I asked that because one really important thing that was brought up in the patterns is the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. We can't, that's true. So my thinking about the meaning of the song has changed from time passing by to hardships of life because the author wrote many different questions. Let's try to make that just a little bit more specific. He wrote many different questions that what? About problems in the world. Good, there you go. And if you wanted to get even more specific, you could also throw in a specific example, cutting and pasting from the text. Perfect. So let's look at this. And there's quite a few problems in the world. So let's look at that idea really quick about the answers blowing in the wind. And I liked Paige's idea of like, well, you can't catch it, right? So do you think that the author is posing the question that there's all of these hardships in life hopefully for us to figure out? However, if something's blowing in the wind, does it often move quickly or change? Does the answer blowing in the wind make it hard for us to know if there's a right answer? The wind does change. The world is changing. Looks like Riley and Jonah both have an idea. See them typing in there. Yeah. They are kind of metaphorical questions. Okay, Riley, I'll answer that in a second. Awesome. So Paige made a comment that this was a hard one, but you guys did a great job just trying to dig in there and figure some stuff out. One of the things, especially about poetry, whether it's poetry and music or just poetry written in books, is that there can be a lot of different interpretation. And so that's part of what makes it so hard, right? It is hard, Bonnie. However, you guys are doing a good job and you continue to keep getting better. So I applaud you for all of this hard work. We will actually move into poetry next week. Not that this isn't poetry, because it is. That was the whole reason why I used Bob Dylan this week, is because he is the first musician that was honored with the Nobel Literature Prize. So it's cool, a cool bridge between the two worlds. So yeah, we might use Shel Silverstein. Let's see. There's lots of cool poets out there. So keep up the hard work. You guys are doing a lot of good work in here. This is not easy stuff, but I tell you, by the end of the year, you guys are going to be masters at figuring out what things mean. So let me go ahead and stop the screen share here. And I know, Riley, you had a great question about the open house tonight. Let me stop the recording.